Question: what game is this? If you guessed Animorphs Shattered Reality, that is correct. Congratulations! How the heck did you get that answer? Number 1. Everything. About as good a place to start as any. Animorphs, a book series about a bunch of middle school kids who morph into different animals to combat an evil alien invasion. Animorphs Shattered Reality, a video game where you ride giant spatulas in a volcano. Released in 2000 on PlayStation 1, Animorphs Shattered Reality is a video game adaptation of the once popular young adult book series Animorphs, and is a prime example of what happens when you have a license to a series that nobody in your team has ever read before and a deadline of next week. Which is to say that the game has nothing to do with its source material, or makes any kind of logical sense. The book series of the same name followed the story of 5 middle school kids who, along with their own alien friend, morph into animals to combat an evil alien race which threatens to take over the world. Shattered Reality is almost the same, except this time this blue dude, Visser 3,
gained control of a weapon powered by a continuum crystal. But the weapon was more powerful than expected. The crystal exploded. It shattered reality itself.
A common side effect of downloading Windows 11. Now, whatever gameplay you thought an Animorphs game might have, it turns out the correct answer is a bizarre blend of 2D and 3D platforming and puzzle solving, which perplexingly enough was the style at the time if Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, and Bubsy 3D are of any indication. Which, come to think of it, why was that style of gameplay so popular back then? Maybe it was easy to code, or maybe because this way you'd be too distracted by jumping over things that you wouldn't have time to stop and wonder who set up a freaking treadmill on the top of trees. Number 2. A hop, a skip, and a death. Let's start with the main gameplay, the platforming. It's certainly a thing. The majority of what you'll be doing in this game is collecting A coins while moving between some 2D side-scroller segments and jumping around avoiding obstacles in 3D platforming segments. The X button is used for jumping, square is only used in combat, triangle is used to flip switches, if you couldn't tell, and circle...
it does absolutely nothing.
This means that, aside from the joystick, you'll only be using one button for anything most of the time, making this game pretty simple as things go. That said, it doesn't mean you'll be spending all your time mindlessly pushing the X button until you eventually get into a fight. Shattered Reality is the kind of game where if you're not paying attention at all times, you're liable to take an all-expenses paid, first-class, one-way trip down each and every bottomless pit the game has to offer.
Do it again! I wasn't looking!
Something that I rather like about these older games is the willingness to try out anything and everything. Like, what if we had a segment where you're dodging lasers, or swinging around a jungle, or hopping around an abandoned subway tunnel? Nice The Underground reference, by the way. But something else nice about the world is how seamless its integration is. Use of music and ambient noises set the tone of each segment and each stage pretty well. In fact, that's one of the things I like the most about Shattered Reality. It never needs to tell you anything. There are no tutorials in this game. No one stops you every few seconds to explain a random function that you may never even do again after its one specific use. You just jump, and you have to figure out the rest for yourself, like when to jump, and what to jump on, and when not to jump. I mean, it doesn't take an astrophysicist to know how this works. Wait, what? Wait a minute, what?
Yes, it is done! Physics have been defeated!
See, the problem with Shattered Reality is that being simplistic isn't its only shortcoming. Turns out its failings lie in everything else. For starters, Shattered Reality's world is difficult to perceive in 3D space. The background and foreground tend to blend together sometimes, and it's hard to tell when a 3D perspective is even in effect in certain instances. But at least things like this don't interrupt the gameplay flow very much. In fact, Shattered Reality's map design makes it so that at all times you're actively doing something, even when you're just standing around, which I think is pretty impressive. There's never a dull moment, except the loading screens. Those are extremely dull. Number 3. Mighty Morphin Game Mechanics. It wouldn't be much of an Animorphs game if you didn't morph in it. Well, it's It's already not much of an Animorphs game, but still. Morphing is the combat section of all things, which I guess makes sense. I mean, what else are you gonna do? Morph into a bird and fly over all this stuff? Haha, wait a second, why can't I do that?
There are some times when I wish I were a bird.
The combat of Shattered Reality can best be described as humorous? You hit the square button until your opponent dies. A revolutionary combat system, I know. So much so that it would go on to inspire the entire gameplay of the Persona 4 Arena series. Shockingly, the strategy of button mashing was actually taken into account when making the equally shocking number of baddies to battle. The only other time you're morphed is during the race stages. I'm not really sure what else to call them. The main obstacle here are giant frogs. Wrong, actually, it's getting stuck on the environment. While it's certainly ambitious to make a fully 3D race stage at this juncture, it didn't work very well. The hitboxes are janky and it can be very hard to even tell where you're going sometimes. Worst yet is that sometimes you can lose a level before you've even begun, since the boost is glitched in such a way where you can start a race stage with it fully depleted before you've so much as pressed a button. How are these animals even boosting anyways? Wait, I don't think I want to know. Number 4, The Aftermath. The aftermath of Animorphs Shattered Reality is, well, some people played it on Games Done Quick.
I'm also going to do a neat little trick here. It's called not waiting. We did it.
Animorphs Shattered Reality was made by a game company called Single Track, who apparently worked on the first Twisted Metal game, and Shattered Reality was the last game that they ever made before closing up shop for good only a few months after it came out. And for a swan song of the company, well, you could do a lot worse, but is that really saying a lot? The truth is, Shattered Reality was never considered a good game, both when it was new and now, having little name appeal to general audiences and turning away curious players with just a bit too much instant death in even the earliest levels, and not enough Animorph themes going on. But even in spite of all of its obvious failings, I still like Shattered Reality. Everyone has that one game that they look back on in their childhood, a game that says a lot of things to them that it probably was never supposed to, which is kind of why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Shattered Reality was not a very good game, but it's a game that I still see a lot of good in. Simple doesn't equal bad, and just because all you're doing is making a bunch of jumps doesn't mean those jumps don't require planning and timing and even a little bit of skill, keeping momentum in mind, dealing with obstacles as they come, but just because you know how to handle the situation doesn't mean that you'll always be able to do it effectively on the first try. You still need to learn how to deal with the obstacles as they come, even if you know it just involves jumping. To me, Shattered Reality will always be a fun reminder that you don't need expensive graphics or complex button combos to enthrall an audience. To give you back that childhood feeling of just one more try, just one more level. I imagine most people don't think back to Animorphs Shattered Reality for those, but I'm sure most people do have their own game in particular that they look back on. One that they maybe wouldn't recommend to other people and might even be a little embarrassed about, but still was a game that means a lot to them. For me, that game is Animorphs Shattered Reality. As glitchy and buggy and goofy as it is, I wouldn't want it any other way. Well, maybe I would like it to be a little less buggy. At the end of its long road, Animorphs Shattered Reality is a shattered mess, relegated as a meme at best and a confused look at worst. But even for all of its faults, the memories, the joy, the rage, the game overs, the credit song that we're all embarrassed to admit we enjoy, Shattered Reality may not have left a place in video game history, but it certainly made a mark in many of our own hearts. So in that way, it will never truly fade away. It'll haunt you forever as a nightmare. So, if you're thinking of playing Animorphs Shattered Reality, my recommendation to you is... you probably shouldn't, actually. But if you do, make sure you stock up on those extra lives, because some of these jumps are seriously hard to... Hey, you watched my video. Thank you so much. Kind of a weird video to talk about, especially now, so I really appreciate you sticking around until the end. If you liked it, why not leave a comment and tell me what you thought? Or if you didn't like it, tell me that too. If you're interested in more, or you just like to watch someone embarrass themselves, I got some other videos on my channel. And if not, well, then I just hope you have a good day, night, morning, evening, afternoon, dawn, dusk. See you around.
I'm Mr. Frog. This is my show. I eat the bug.